Welcome to Deep Thought. Your power may be greater than you realize. Now, in my first podcast this week, I talked about the engines of the world, the individuals that move everything along. And then in my podcast yesterday, I talked about change agents. Change agents, those individuals who, in most cases, consciously change things up. In most cases, consciously. Like I said, there could be instances where they change stuff just by doing their thing, don't even realize what they created. But understand something. These are individuals. These are individuals. These are people. And they are people just like you. These people, even though, and I mentioned in one of the podcasts how powerful an attractive person can be, how they can influence others. Most of the people who move the world, who move the system, and even those who move counter to the system and those who create new systems, they're all people. They're all individuals. If you take a hard look at them, they ain't no Chad or Tyrone, or they ain't no super gorgeous woman. Like I said, yeah, it's a powerful thing. Yeah, you got some in there, but the overwhelming majority of them, they the type of person could be sitting next to you on the subway, and you ain't thinking anything. They the type of person you could walk by in a grocery store. You ain't thinking this is a powerful person. They regular people. They regular looking people anyway. I'll say that. They ain't regular people. They ain't regular people, but they regular looking. And they ain't regular people in the sense that they are engines. They can move stuff. And they might not look like much to you. They ain't no super being or anything. Indeed, when you look at that whole concept of super beings, a lot of times people think about Superman or somebody real strong. Like, I tell you what, I was thinking about this character from the Star Trek universe, Khan Noonien Singh, the eugenic Superman. He's supposed to be so smart and super strong. But I say, the super strength is irrelevant. But the thing was his intelligence. And, you might have that person. And even the intelligence part, you can have somebody who can make changes or be a change agent or an engine. And they might not score that high on an IQ test. They might score very normal. Shoot, in some cases, even below normal. But through a combination of who they are and what they believe in and the position they are in to influence other people, they have great power. Every single person listening to me, every single person has the potential to change the world. Let me say that again. Every single person listening to me has the potential. Now, are you going to reach that potential? Maybe, maybe not. But that's another conversation because a lot of people don't go anywhere near their potential. But when I say potential, you never know when you decide on an idea and you decide to live that idea. And it might just be something as simple as people seeing you live that idea that could change. You know what? I remember when I was in college, my freshman year in college at St. Joe's University in Philadelphia. I had a habit, when I was there, I had a habit of just reading a book. That's where a lot of people used to see me in the library. I used to post up, I'd be at the libraries and I'd be posting up right up front where I could see all the girls walking. No, I really did it that way. And I'm going to tell you what, you never know who sees what you're doing. Now, I remember there was a young man who worked in the cafeteria. And I'm going to be real, he didn't come off as a college-level person who could be in a college. And looking back at it, he might have been high on the autism spectrum, like a functional autistic person. Seriously, just how he carried himself. And I know he wasn't from a, upper-class background or anything like that. But I never forget what he said to me one time. We were just talking because, Ron was generally friendly. And he said, I always see you reading something. What do you be reading? And I started talking about it. And I'm going to be real. In the next few weeks, I started seeing him with books in his hand. Well, it wasn't major books. It'd be like a magazine, newspaper or something. But I say by the end of that year, I would regularly see him and he would have reading material. He started off small, but by the end of the year, he did have regular books. Now, I don't know what happened to him. I can't remember his name because this is back in 83. This is back when I was a freshman in 83. And like I say, he was just a cafeteria worker. But he started reading stuff. I don't know where he might have went. No telling how he could have been affected. Because I'm gonna tell you what, I've known a couple guys who put themselves through college and they were like university workers. They just worked at the university. Like when I was at American University, there were a couple guys I knew, and one was an administrative assistant, one worked in the mailroom. But since the thing there, if you worked there, you could take classes. Both these guys took classes. And both of them actually, after they graduated, they both went for higher degrees. No telling how many people they affected. And no telling who they influenced just by seeing them do something. And that's everybody. That's every single person. You don't know whose lives that you're touching. You don't know who. You might be like, oh, I'm just a plain person, but you don't know whose life you're touching. Let me give another story. I remember when I was working in the government. When I was working in the government, we had a clerk, office clerk. And, she didn't have an advanced degree. She didn't have an advanced degree, and, her stuff was more support. And she was smaller stature. And her husband, he was more of a janitor. He was more of a janitor. So she had the office support job. He had the janitorial thing. But her power, and other guys in there was a minister who worked there. And he the first one he pointed out. He saw who she was and how powerful she was. The thing was, her power, it was in being a mother. She had 4 children. And I remember she told me the story. I shared it somewhere. I think I shared it on here probably a few years ago, but I'll share it again. I remember she said, me and her were talking, and she said, she got a call from her school, her oldest son's principal. And the oldest son's principal wanted to speak with her. And I'll never forget that. I will never forget that as long as I live. She said, okay, and she was nervous. She didn't know what happened. And it turned out, the principal didn't want to speak whether to put the son down or complain about him. The principal wanted to speak to her to see what she was doing because her son was doing so many things. And her other 3 children, all 4 of her children were doing some great things. And they were doing well in school, straight A's. No telling what these kids would grow up to be. I'm not sure because, I hadn't kept up with her. But imagine these children, they all get advanced degrees. Imagine one becomes an attorney, one becomes a doctor, one becomes a minister. Maybe one just say, I don't want to do all that. I just want to be a good housewife or something. Or one becomes an entrepreneur. I put it like that. Right? And people might say, well, yeah, they're doing all that stuff, but then how many people they're affecting? And think about it. For them, they could collectively affect millions of people. Just those 4 kids, just by what they grow up to become. They could affect millions, and then some of the people they affect others. So, and then if you start tracing back what they're saying, like I said, I don't know exactly what they did, but just follow this hypothetical. So, you got an attorney, you got a doctor, you got a minister, you got an entrepreneur. You got somebody creating businesses, creating livelihoods for maybe a few hundred people, maybe even depending on the business, a few thousand people. You have a minister who's ministering to a few thousand people, keeping them on the straight and narrow, having them touch other people in their behavior and everything. You have a doctor saving lives. You have an attorney who's making a difference in the lives of people. Think about it. Think about it. And then if you trace all that back, it could be to one diminutive woman with a great spirit. Think about it. I want y'all to think about it. Somebody might look at her and might not think much of it, say, oh, she ain't all that. But look how powerful she is. Every single person listening to this podcast has that same power. You don't know whose lives you're touching. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know who. It could be somebody just because of what you're doing, some action you took just out of your normal day could feed somebody. You ain't even put money to it. It could feed somebody in a part of the world, or it can influence somebody in another place. Somebody that you never met might just see you doing your thing, and it inspires them to do some stuff, which can in turn touch millions. That's how powerful each and every one of you is here. You're not an accident. Regardless of how you choose to worship the Creator, you're not an accident. Everyone here has a purpose. I want you to think about that. And your power might be greater. You're not lesser than anyone. All right? So that's all I have for today, y'all. I'll talk to you later. Peace and blessings.